Hello friends, Maggie here, the summer education intern at Rancho de las Golondrinas, Santa Fe's premier living history museum. We're getting ready for this weekend's Fiesta de los Niños, which will feature Clyde the Buffalo. Today, I'm pleased to share with you a little about his handler, Mr. Clint Mortenson. Clint's journey began in the small town of Grattan, South Dakota, where he was born and raised in a family-owned horse breeding and training facility. His parents, Carlisle and Marion Mortenson, operated a modest business focused on Quaker horses and paints, specializing in reining. We trained and showed Quaker horses and paints mostly in reining, Clint recalls, and we always stood a few stallions. Growing up in this environment instilled in him a deep love for horses and a strong work ethic. After high school, Clint received his college degrees in commercial art, marketing, and management from Northern State University in Aberdeen, South Dakota. Upon graduating, Clint moved to Los Angeles, where he began training horses at the famous Will Rogers State Park in Pacific Palisades and met celebrities such as Arnold Schwarzenegger, Maria Shriver, and Billy Crystal. Soon after, Clint moved to Europe for work for Euro's Disney Buffalo Bill's Wild West show in Paris. During this time, he was commissioned by Disney to make replicas of Buffalo Bill's and Annie Oakley's saddles for the show. After his return to the U.S., Clint decided to further hone his saddle-making skills and attended a leather workshop in Lusk, Wyoming with renowned saddle maker Harry Adams. In 2001, Clint moved to Santa Fe for the community of artists and the welcoming climate. The move proved to be beneficial as Clint became the go-to person who could provide riding lessons, horses, and gear to the developing film industry. With a dedicated team, including fellow saddle maker Wes Mastick, he enjoys a mix of shop work, roping, and riding lessons, and time spent with his son Wyatt. Mortenson's work continues to encompass a broad range of projects, from custom leather work for high-profile clients to donations and events supporting local equine rescues. Clint Mortenson's story is a testament to the convergence of passion and skill, illustrating how a deep-rooted love for horses and artistry can shape a lifelong career.
Hello, my name is Clint Mortenson. I'm from Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I have a saddle shop here. We make custom saddles and buckles and other custom leather items, and I've been here for about 23 years. I started doing leather work when I was a little kid, about 10. I was doing stuff with my grandpa, working on harnesses and some saddles, and then I started tooling leather and making belts and billfolds and stuff. And through high school to make a little bit of money. And then later I went to a saddle making school, Texas Trail Saddles, and I went there for a year and learned to build saddles, and so I've had a shop for about 30 years now. I'd like to talk about the construction of saddles and evolution. This is called a tree. This is the foundation that a saddle is built on, a Western saddle. And it is wood, and it's covered with rawhide and hand sewn on with deerskin lacing, and then it's varnished afterwards just to repel water. And they like a soft wood instead of a hard wood because it's a little bit lighter, and then when you drive the nails and screws in, it doesn't split up like a hardwood would. And it's basically 4 components. You have the front, the swells or fork or pommel, and then the cantle, and then you have the 2 bars. So it's 4 pieces of wood put together. And then the rawhide is hand sewn over the top. And they call this the tree. It used to come from a tree, and like the fork of the saddle, it used to come out, they'd cut like a V wherever 2 branches went out, and they'd start with that piece of wood and stuff. And then they've evolved so much over the years. Like the horn, now they used to be, a lot of them were steel. Now the majority are just aluminum. That proves to be just as strong, keep them lighter weight. And trees have changed so much. A lot of the older saddles, they are really narrow. The horses were smaller and stuff, and through the gullet here, it was quite a bit narrower. This one's about 6.5 inches wide, is kind of a quarter horse standard size right now. But they used to be even like 5 inches or less and stuff for some of the small horses back then. And then you start out with this. We put a ground seat in, we call it, and we start building up the seat here with leather, and then it takes 1 whole cowhide and 1 sheepskin and the hardware to make a saddle. And like quality sheepskin and stuff, we'll use a bark tan and sheepskin and stuff, and it's usually about 7/8 of an inch thick, the pile on it and stuff. Western saddles in the mid 1800s, they looked more like this. They had some of the tree exposed, with the rawhide exposed, like much like a lot of the vaquero and the Mexican saddles and such. And then they made it like they did a few different styles called hope saddles. And so like the mid 1800s up to the 1870s and a little further, they had the rawhide exposed like this one. And a lot of them were single rigged. And here's another one that's very similar. Has just a little bit more leather on it, and than the first one. The rigging is called a Sam Stagg, where it wraps around the saddle horn, designed by Sam Stagg. So they started adding and getting a little bit bigger fenders and adding a little bit more leather to them. And then they came out with the Mother Hubbard with like this. It's like a mochila that lays over the top of the saddle. They had similar ones even with Pony Express with the bags in the corner and such. So that would be like a late 1800s. And then they started covering the trees completely. Sometimes I don't think it lasts with the elements as well and stuff. So they started covering up the canals and the swells completely. Like this is like a 1880s F.A. Mena style saddle and stuff, where the cattle drives, where they ended up in Cheyenne, Wyoming and stuff. This was a real popular saddle in the late 1800s. And then notice that they all are slit fork, or they're smooth here. They don't have swells that protrude out like today's saddles. Then after the turn of the century in the early 1900s is when they started putting swells on the front for more security, and they got really large for a while, and now they're just kind of down to average size. Like this would be more like today's saddle. It has a little bit of swells. This one still has a post horn, but everything is covered in leather. There's no exposed rawhide to shrink up or be damaged. And the leather that we use to build a saddle, we use vegetable tanned leather, and it's saddle skirting, it's called. And it doesn't have any oils in it. It's dry. It doesn't have like latigo leathers and harness leathers. They have some tallow waxes put in them and different things to keep them supple. But this we want dry, so that then we can shape it once it's wet. Without the oils, it's easier to conform around the front of the saddle and the back, and without the oils. So the thickness, generally, it goes by ounces, and is how leather is purchased. And for like a Western saddle, like a 13 to 15 ounce is probably the most common thickness. And they use a little bit lighter weight leather for like barrel saddles, reining saddles, cutting saddles, where weight's a little bit of an issue. They want to be the closer contact. Where like on ranch saddles and roping saddles, they'll use heavier leather, like 15, 16 ounce even. The other leather that we use on making a saddle is latigo leather. And it's the two kinds, veg tan, skirting, and latigo. The latigo, a lot of times you'll see it in a burgundy color, red burgundy, and that has some oils in it, and it's tanned, chrome tan. It's that way it'll stay flexible, and that's where like the saddle strings and the latigos for cinching up come out of latigo leather, because it's just known to be supple and durable that way, but it won't take an imprint. It won't conform like skirting leather. And like the skirting leather, we'll take a pattern like for tooled saddles, whether it be basket stamp, floral. Since this is dry, you'll moisten it, and then with the stamps, you can get deep impressions since it doesn't have any tallow or anything else in it. And then once it's finished, that's when we'll put on the oil on the saddle, and then it comes back to life. It'll soften up and everything after that. The next thing you do is you gotta roll out your skirting leather and find the parts of the saddle with the different patterns. You got to cut out the appropriate part of the hide. So the things that have to be the most durable and longest wearing, that you don't want stretched, like stirrup leathers and fenders, you take out of the back of the cowhide, because that's the most durable, best leather on the cowhide. We're down on like the neck and the belly of the cow, it gets stretchy and it's not as durable, it's flexible, doesn't wear as well. So you use those portions of the hide where you have to conform things. Since that's so stretchy like belly leather, and you can stretch it over the swells of the saddle, and stuff, places that you really have to mold the leather and stuff, where like the stirrup leathers, I said, that you don't want stretch out of, things like that. And like if you want the fenders firm and the skirts, you take more out of the top half of the hide and a little bit there. Or other parts you can line and stuff to make it a little bit more durable. But so like the portions, even like the saddle horn, this here, it's hard to believe, but this is actually a cover for like the saddle horn. Here, these wings, they wrap around, so that's what the pattern looks like, but you never expected to see it covering the saddle. So since that's can be flexible in that, we'll take that out of the lower part of the hide towards the belly also. And like the fenders, the side of the saddle, you want pretty good leather on those and stuff, so you try to keep them a little bit higher. And then the skirts, this is what goes underneath the saddle, like this here. That'll be the part that goes in between the horse and the saddle tree. And then like the bottom has to be a little bit more firm, and then the top can be a little bit flexible. There's no pressure on it, so you can lay them out with the best part towards the back of the hide. And it takes two complete, this is a side, and it takes two complete sides to make one saddle. When a customer comes in to order a custom saddle, I ask them what's important to them first off, and a lot of elderly people, they say weight is the most important issue. A few people, color is important. A lot of the ranch cowboys, it's just the tree style and what they're doing with it. So for these trail saddles and trail riders, which the majority of horse owners are, we try to keep the saddle lightweight, like the inskirt rigging and stuff keeps it lighter, and lighter weight leather that's still supple and gonna last. But for these ranch cowboys and ropers, build them out a little heavier leather and ask what type of riding. So if they're doing a lot of team roping, we get a specific roping tree that's built for that, and it's a little bit heavier. It's a little thicker, the bars in between you and the horse and stuff, just to make it more durable, taking that jerk from roping so much. Where if you're trail riding, you can get by with a little thinner bar if you're cutting or reining and be a little closer to the horse. But you need it heavier if you're going to be doing a lot of heavy roping and such. And then we'll ask what style horse they're riding. And sometimes they bring their horse in, sometimes they have pictures, or they just describe it a little bit. I've even had to make molds of some horses' backs, and it worked out well, but the horse back keeps changing throughout the years, so I like to get like the generic, the most typical type of horse you're riding. If you're riding like a 15-hand quarter horse, it has a pretty good back. Instead of making exactly for one horse, we have some patterns that fit the majority, you know, it might fit 75% at least and stuff, because the horseback keeps changing. So I think if you can go with something more right in the middle, then it's going to serve you better throughout the years. And so then the next thing is, so we'll be fitting the horse, and we try and do different bars on the bottom. There's several different patterns. There's some that are called Haight bars, or Northwest bars, or Arizona bars, and so we'll figure out what's going to fit their horse the best that way. And then we got to make it comfortable for the riders. So we figure out like what type of a tree that they want, how high of a back, if they trail riding a lot, if they like a deep seat, secure, or if they're roping a lot. If you're roping calves, you want a lower cantle, or if you're cutting and reining, you don't want it too high because you're leaning back to stop and such. So, and then about the horn, some people like a little short horn if they're just reining and competing and stuff, where they're not really tying anything onto it. And then like this would be like a team roping horn. This is like a number 4 Dally horn, they call this one, and it's great for roping and durable. So depends on what the customer's going to be doing with their saddle. If they're going to be ranching, roping, trail riding, or barrel racing, make it really lightweight if they're barrel racing. But we always we like using the wood rawhide covered trees. They're kind of about the best tree going, handmade. So there's a lot of different variables. When I order a custom tree, I have to tell them the gullet width, this here, it's where the bars meet up with the swell. So right from here to here, we measure that. The gullet width and the gullet height from the table up to the lip of the here. and the height of the horn, the diameter of the horn, maybe the pitch if you want it leaning forward or back, the cantle, the width of the cantle, if you want an oval, or if you want a comfort cantle or a shovel cantle. There's different shapes you can get if you want it really round or if you want it a little flatter. And then you have to order how much dish you want in the seat. Like we usually go about 1.25 inches and stuff so that it's comfortable. And so you can get it flatter like some of the old ones or even more of a dish for the customer. And then you measure the height of the cantle is the other thing. And you go from the top of the bar to the top of the cantle for the height. And those are the main specs when you're ordering a custom saddle shoe for a customer. The tools on my bench, I try to keep in order. This is a sewing awl, a haft, where you poke holes through the leather and then you can stick a needle and thread through. And there's different sizes of awls where if you're hand sewing, you have to poke a hole originally for that. Then we have the edgers here, and there's French edgers, and they all are graduated in size. So if it's thinner leather, you use the one that doesn't take off as much material and stuff just to round the leather over. This is what I did in that other demonstration. And then these are bag punches. These cut slots in the leather for like buckle tongues. When you're putting straps on with buckles, you have different widths, or else if you're cutting holes for like saddle strings, you'll use like the 1/2-inch punch here for saddle strings for the conchos and skirts. And this is saddler's hammer, same design, been around for over 100 years. And more of the round knives, which we use so much. Some pliers, and these are strap end punches. These here, it gives you a nice perfect end to all of your straps. This is a rounded strap end punch, and they're all in different graduated sizes from 1/2 inch up to 1.5 inches, and they all give that perfect round edge. And then we have the pointed ones for like belt tips and that. It's the same tool basically, but it comes to a point instead of just the rounded end. And then these are graduated again, 1/2 inch up to 1.5 inches. And okay, and here's all the leather punches and stuff, the hole punches. These here are saddler's punches, they call them, where they graduate in size from 0 up to 9 instead of having a revolving punch like a lot of people do. This is more less expensive, and you can have all the different sizes, but most professional saddle shops, they have a punch for every size. The most used tool of a saddle maker is a round knife, and try to keep it razor sharp, and that's what you cut out all the patterns with, all the pieces of the saddle, and use it for skiving, so you can cut off the leather and then skive down edges where you overlap and stuff, so you don't have bumps and stuff where they feather in, so you can get so that they lay smooth when they're next to each other. So the round knife is important, and then all the edges on a quality saddle or leather goods, everything have the edges rounded with a edger like this, and you can edge both sides, and it gets a rounded edge, and then you polish it. You put on a little bit of saddle soap and a canvas, and you can polish that, and you have a nice rounded smooth edge. So this is the vegetable tan leather, like what you'll make saddles from, or belts, or anything that you want impressions in. So I wetted this leather so it darkened up some, and it's starting to lighten up a little bit because you don't want it too wet or too dry. It's called like cased when it's about just the right temperature. And then if we're stamping something, we'll define a border generally, whether it be a belt or a saddle, and this is called a swivel knife, and you can cut the borders in. And then this example, I'll use a basket stamp, and I'll show you how that layers. So you get the basket weave with this tool that looks like that. You'll get the basket weave impression. And then after you get your basket weave there, since it's hard to get to line up just on your border stamp, you'll use generally a type of a shell stamp or a little border stamp, and you can go around the edge and clean up the where the basket stamp doesn't go quite to the edge. You get a nice pattern that way. This is a replica saddle of Buffalo Bill Cody's original saddle that was made in 1893 by Collins and Morrison. I made the first replica to it 100 years later in 1993. This style saddle, this one I was originally commissioned by Euro Disney in Paris, France to build a replica of the Buffalo Bill saddle, and the Cody Museum worked with me to get some patterns. And this was him in full Scout's dress. From a picture taken in England, and the running buffalo on silver plates, and then on the cantle the lettering, the Honorable William F. Cody, we inlaid with silver letters. So this is about the original was made, so it's about 130-year-old style, and it had Angora serapes on the back. It's goat skin on those. And it had all floral carving throughout the saddle, along with the pictorial carving. This is a pretty popular style saddle for my customers, and I think people all over the country. This one has a little bit of swells in the front for a little bit of security, and kind of an average to a little higher cantle and stuff for security and comfort. And this rigging's becoming, I've liked it for years, but it's becoming increasingly more and more popular. It's just an inskirt where the metal is riveted into the skirt, where you don't have extra things on top, like a flat plate or D-ring, and it eliminates a little bit of bulk for under your leg, and lighter weight, a little less leather. And it's durable if it's built right. You can still rope anything out of it. And like a saddle like this, generally, this one we did not make, but a saddle takes probably, if you're doing, some makers that make like the same style all the time, just smooth the rough out, can do one in a week. Generally a couple weeks to make a saddle, and then if you have the tooling and silver, it just adds on to it. You know, some can go up to a month or so with all the detail work. Thanks for joining me. Again, my name is Clint Mortenson, and I'm the owner of Mortenson Silver Saddles in Santa Fe, New Mexico. We're located about 10 miles south on Highway 14, the Turquoise Trail, and we're open 9 to 4 Monday through Friday. Stop by and see us if you get over this way. We have a website, silverandsaddles.com also, and you can take a look at some of our projects that we've made for other customers, and hope to see you here.